guys, Plasticon here. This is my attempt to try to salvage the footage I had for trying to repair these laser rods. I will probably end up doing a redo for these later on, but this may help some people with some situations that I ran into during the process. So I will have this thing broke up, and I've kind of reiterated later on in the video that I will have them all broke up into the 3 different bots that I actually did, so that way you guys don't have to sit here and say, oh, I gotta scrub through all this footage. No, you don't have to do that. So I'm going to try to make this easy for you guys, and I'll end up having 3 of these different videos put out, so that way it will help you guys that are trying to repair your laser rods. Like I said, this is nothing that's actually set in stone. It's just a quick video I can put up to help you guys and try to salvage some of the footage I actually put together. So, I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to another Plasticon thing. This isn't a review, this is actually a repair video. I know a lot of you guys out there has actually been asking, and I do plan on doing repair videos for some Transformers, especially since a lot of these guys tend to be a bit old and sometimes you guys don't get them in the best condition. So this is a quick video. Basically I'm going to be showing you guys how to do only one of the laser rods. I actually have several here. The thing is, I'm going to break these up so that way when you guys want to go check out one of the videos, you guys can check one out and then be like, bam, this is the car that I'm trying to repair, so that way you don't have to scroll through an entire line of repairs before you find the right one. So I'm planning on doing this for all of them. Unfortunately, electro will not be involved. Why? GPS. You guys know what gold plastic syndrome is. If you're not familiar with gold plastic syndrome, I suggest you look it up. It's basically the degrading of plastic because the elements that were used to put it together cause it to be extremely brittle and want to fall apart. That is why I will not be doing electro. I do have them out here on display because, you know, hey, it's electro, it's got to be one of the laser rods out here. But anyway, this is a quick repair video dealing with primarily 2 of the major problems that most people have with laser rods. One, battery compartment being slightly corroded and such, and not working proper, so that way you can put a battery in there to make the lights actually work. The other thing, and it's the big elephant in the room, the waste issue. The reason why a lot of these guys are very floppy is because the waste issue is much like G.I. Joe. These were literally brought into the entire Transformer world with a G.I. Joe engineering. When I'm speaking about this, I'm speaking about an O-ring. If you guys don't know what an O-ring is, it's these little rubber things. I actually have replacements here. These are replacements for the little O-rings that are actually in these toys. But before I get into that, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the tools you're going to need. I primarily suggest like anything that is a small screwdriver, like your precision screwdrivers. I do highly suggest you get those. Mainly try to get them in little different sizes. If you don't have precision screwdrivers, then I can understand that. I happen to have a all-in-one tool here. It's kind of crazy. I do use this thing quite often. It's got some nice little flip out pieces here. And the cool thing about this, and it actually has a light on the inside, so that way I can use it if I need to use the light. Primarily if you are having issues trying to see and how deep the screw is actually down into the hole on a particular toy. So the big thing here is, how do I get into the battery compartment on this toy? The reason why I do have pliers and such out here is primarily sometimes you have an item that will get caught. Now I do suggest needle nose pliers. That's what these are. Yeah, these are a little bit painted because I tend to use these for painting items as well. If you guys have been following me for a very long time, you know I do customs. A pair of actual real pliers. And God forbid you ever need them, snips just in case something isn't right. There are times you will find mold flashing on toys, and sometimes that's why you will need those. The biggest thing here is when it comes to repairing things, make sure you have the proper tools. The other thing I do suggest is maybe some rubbing alcohol. This is just some cheap stuff from Walmart. And Q-tips. Q-tips are very important for cleaning out the battery compartments on these things. Now, before I get any further into this, you guys are probably wondering, how did I get O-rings? You can actually look these up on eBay and find several sellers out there that will sell O-rings that actually fit G.I. Joe figures. I do believe hardware stores carry them, and I'm not absolutely sure what the size is on them, but I know the sizes are literally littered out there on the internet. All you literally have to do is type in replacement G.I. Joe rubber band, and bam, there it is. It's going to be right there. It's literally in the Google search. Like, I barely even started typing it in, and bam, there it was. So it was crazy. It comes up very fast. Cool thing is these things are pretty nice. Let me take one out of here real quick. And I got a lot of, like 10 of them, so, you know, the best thing to do is to have more than one, just in case something isn't right. You gotta think, it's a rubber band. Things aren't always perfect. Sometimes the rubber doesn't adhere correct. As you can see, it's very tactile, very bendable type of rubber band, and this is the problem. The problem with a lot of these toys throughout the years, the rubber band's actually located down in this area here, and they do degrade after a while. They can actually snap in half. And that's one big problem I see. Electro here tends to be the one that I also see suffering a lot, mainly because the rubber band does go out on him fairly easily. Due to the fact that this thing is gold plastic, it tends to get more tossed around. I see more Electros probably torn in half than I do the other ones, but these guys do get a little wobbly staying on a shelf. But before we get further into that, let's tackle the battery compartment issue. This one here, particularly right now, I'm not absolutely sure how great the batteries are in this. I do know for a fact when I press his little hood ornament here, it should light up, but it's not lighting up. And it should light up this engine manifold. A lot of people thought the actual headlights light up. They don't. It's just the engine part. It's this intake right here, so it should light up. Much like good old Jolt here. As you can see, Jolt lights up just fine. He's actually got his light up gimmick. Now, not all of you guys out there know of these guys as illuminators as well, so they do both. But the big thing here is trying to get into this compartment here. Now, the first thing I always suggest is to pop the LED part here with the wire. You always want to try to get that part out first. And it's obviously sometimes kind of tricky to pull this out. It just kind of lodges down in there. You just pull it directly out and it should come out. Now these things here do get a little knackered over a while because obviously you can see it's kind of shaped to the shape of the car because it is a wire. I do suggest if you are trying to straighten these really, really well, maybe use a bit of I would use like a hair dryer or something like that to kind of get the rubber more pliable. So that way you're not straining any of the wires that are in here. Because the biggest problem with a lot of these things is these tend to break after a while. Now the cool thing here is there's literally right here one little screw. And that one little screw right there literally is extremely easy to take off. I'm just going to take one of my smaller precision. It's a Phillips head. It's not a flat head. I'm going to get down in here and then just unscrew it. And it comes out fairly easy. I do suggest when you do this stuff, go very slow. That way you don't overstrain the screw or strip out the plastic, because the plastic in the toy is literally what your threading is. And then you have to kind of wiggle your fingers down in there, but you should be able to pull the battery compartment top off. Now you can clearly tell on mine right here, it's got some corrosion going on right here. That could be the only issue. But you can tell two batteries down in there. positive and then the negative. And then you're just going to kind of pop it on top like this, and they should pop right out. Now something I am already noticing is a little more corrosion down in here. Now, as you can actually see here, you can see the corrosion down in that area right there, and then none right there. Now this happens over time with any toy. I'm going to tell you right now, this is actually a very good guide to showing you guys how to fix any issue whatsoever on any type of battery operated toy. That's one big thing a lot of guys out there are like, oh well, how do I fix this particular issue? Now, when it comes to the very small stuff like this, I normally will take just like a very small tipped screwdriver, and I will just literally go through here and just kind of scrape a little bit of it off. Now, I know some people out there is like, why don't you use like a wire brush or something? Well, I think a wire brush is a little too abrasive sometimes. And sometimes you can just use sandpaper for this. As you can see, I literally cleaned a lot of that green stuff off just from scraping it. It's not too hard to do. It's a very simple thing to do. And the biggest thing here is to make sure there's not any extreme corrosion, because if there's any extreme corrosion, say I took this apart and this here was completely rusted through, and if I barely even touched it, it's so brittle falls apart. If that's the case, then my suggestion to you is possibly to try to seek out another, maybe like a junker. And there's a little bit of corrosion here even on the battery. Sometimes you just scrape a little bit of that off. Yeah, see, it just comes off all nice and clean. Sometimes this will actually happen just to any toy whatsoever. Corrosion is a big thing sometimes. And if you just kind of get in there, maybe even with your fingernail too, and just kind of scrape on it a little bit, it will clean itself off really well. And then sometimes the battery itself won't even be dead. It's just got so much corrosion built up between it that it can cause such problems to happen. Now the biggest issue here we had was the real bad corrosion right there on that one contact. What I'll do is come in here and just kind of scrape on it. And when I'm scraping, I'm doing a bit of a downward scrape. I'm not actually trying to dig the screwdriver into the plastic. I'm letting the screwdriver kind of just glide across the contact. And yeah, you'll blow on it just to try to see if maybe you can knock any dust out of there. Because you will get dust. And that's one thing, like, there's not so much corrosion that's going to come off here. It's going to completely ruin your day or anything. It's just going to have enough in there that could be an issue over time. But this is a very easy way of fixing one of your laser rods. Now, like I said, if there's high corrosion to the point that you cannot repair it, then I do highly suggest you go out there and maybe seek out like a junker, one that's broken, one that's got a lot of problems, something like that. And then maybe see if you can salvage parts off of that. This does have quite a bit on it, so I will end up using a little bit of rubbing alcohol, obviously, on it. This is a simple thing you can do. Just take your Q-tip and obviously just dunk it in there. And the thing is, you don't want to bring your Q-tip out soaking wet, so I normally will kind of roll it around the top. I try to get the biggest part of the alcohol off the swab, because you never want to take a soaking wet swab and put it against any kind of electronics at all. I mean, it will ruin something if you're not careful. But, you know, that's fairly damp, which is what you want. You don't want anything any worse. And the bad thing about this, like if you're using alcohol, you keep in mind that if you have a lot of paint apps on a toy, it could possibly take the paint off the toy. So just make sure what you're doing, you're only touching the parts that you want to touch. Now I'm taking this alcohol and going in there, and I'm just kind of sticking the Q-tip against there and just spinning it against that contact, trying to get some of that off there. And then I'll take the other end of the Q-tip and go in and just kind of dry it out a little bit. You can see I've gotten quite a bit of the corrosion off of there. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's extremely hard to make these things absolutely perfect unless you get in there with maybe like, if you have a Dremel that actually has like a very, very, very light abrasive thing, you might be able to put it in there to get that off, but I really don't suggest doing it that much because you could possibly destroy the contact itself and then it won't ever work again after that. But with the amount of build up here, it's going to probably take a few minutes. Let's see what I can do. Because the biggest thing is you're trying to get the bare metal to come back out from the situations you have. I know this was a request by one of my viewers when it comes to repair, and I will get around to that guy as soon as I can. But hopefully this will help because mine actually has no corrosion in the battery bay. But it does have a fair amount of corrosion in here. Which, you know, this happens. I mean, it's not something that you can really prevent other than just never have batteries in your toys. Or just not even really care about that gimmick, which some people don't. Some people are just like, oh, I'm just glad we got the toy and it transforms just fine. And that's understandable. I've cleaned it up pretty good. It's not, like I said, it's never going to be 100% perfect. And it's pretty corroded. I mean, it's bad. But I'm going to try this out here and see if I can get this to work. I'm going to put the batteries back in. This is the only way to really test it. See if you've gotten anywhere with it by putting the batteries right back into the toy. And then reassemble the door. Which this door is kind of tricky if you're not careful. You got these two little tabs here that are sticking up. These two tabs here have got to go down inside these two little grooves that are literally right above the battery panel. And let's see here. Now see, that since I'm testing it, I don't want to screw it down all the way, but you can tell that either my batteries are dead or it's not coming up with anything there. But I mean, this is a way that you can possibly try to clean it. I know that's not going to be perfect. To be honest, I think the batteries are dead on this one. But the thing is, you don't want to really do that too much to it unless you've really got like a very, very good abrasive thing. Now, I do happen to have files as well. And sometimes the files will help. And I just screwed that right back in. And yeah, done. And that's just, like I said, that's just a little bit of advice to the people out there that want to fix their laser rods. Now, I know not every one of them are going to be perfect. I actually have tried fixing this one several times, and I can never seem to get this one here to actually fire off and work. Now, like I said, that's a bit of advice. This one here, when I first got him, he actually did not work at all. So I did actually fix this one here, which it does, like I said, it works just fine. But let's get into that whole O-ring problem, because to me the O-ring problem is actually a bigger problem than the whole light-up gimmick. The light-up gimmick's great when it works, but to be honest, I like to stand my transformers up, and a lot of times these guys just want to fall over. So the first thing you'll do is you just transform it like you normally would. And then I normally will flip this up here and then get these arms here up out of the way. Now the area you're trying to go for are these three screws here. Reason being is because this is going to remove this entire panel. this whole panel here comes off, and then you're able to get to the O-ring. The O-ring is buried really deep in there. You can actually see that black piece right there. Right here that you're actually seeing. That is actually the O-ring that is in there. These O-rings, like I said, it's very difficult to tell, but they do degrade over time. Sometimes I can actually see a little bit of cracking going on. And the other thing is these things will stretch out over time. And if they stretch out, you got really, really floppy legs. I mean, his legs aren't terrible, but I mean, I've actually stood him up before. I don't have him fully transformed here, but as you can see, he really has issues trying to stand up. Wait, see, I finally got him, but I mean, he's leaning forward, which is one of the biggest problems with good old Jolt here. He's great when you can get him to stand up, and the fact is you have to twist the waist. Now this is the problem. You have people out there that don't know which direction they twisted the waist. If you don't know which direction you twisted the waist, you might want to actually look. And you really can't tell. So my suggestion is, you know, shake him a little bit. See which direction his feet go. See, his feet went directly to the direction that he's actually twisted at. See, he just, he does twist that direction, and that's the problem. That's one of the things you're looking for. You're looking for the direction that you actually twisted him. That is to help you guys avoid from breaking the rubber band. Now, let's go ahead and get into not tearing him up, but taking him apart. Now, I'm going to use like a smaller screwdriver to get in here, and I'm going to have to remove these 3 screws here. This one, and then this one. And they're very tight, so I've actually got a little larger precision screwdrivers as well. Like I said, my thing is your mileage may vary here when it comes to the tools that you have. If you don't have precision screwdrivers, they're fairly cheap. See, I was able to pop that one loose just fine there. Sometimes you need like a little bigger ones. These smaller ones here work very well, but if it's an extremely tight one, you might want to get something that's got a little more of a handle like these. And I'm going to unscrew all of them to make sure they're going to come out before I completely take them out. Now the biggest thing here is remember what screws you took out of where. Sometimes all I'll do is I'll just partially take something apart and leave the screws within wherever I had them. And he should just pop apart. I probably have these screws in too far still. Yeah, I'm going to take these out all the way. I'm going to be like, okay, I took these 2 here, so these are my shoulder screws, because they literally come out of his shoulders. And then take this in here off. Okay. That came out of his waist area. Now the big thing here is taking him apart. I'm basically kind of rocking him to get him to come apart, but see, now he started kind of just coming straight apart. I'm pulling the whole front piece here off. I'll set that aside. His head is going to want to pop off because his head's just on a mushroom peg, so just set it aside as well. And now you can see that's the O-ring. And you can actually, if you can really tell, this thing has got a lot of cracked pieces. It's very cracking all the way through it. And the crazy thing here is you'll just take this right here and just kind of turn it here, and it should come directly off. Now it goes directly over this plastic piece. You have to remember that when, especially when you start putting it back together. Now you can see you got a whole like waist piece here that's just kind of dangling. Well, if you notice, if I put tension on it, the legs, they just won't they don't dangle as much. So say tension. Shows you, I mean, the rubber band makes a major difference on the tension on his legs. All right. Now, obviously, you're like, okay, well, how do I get that out? Well, you can squeeze this, and then you push down, and the whole piece should pop out. Now, if you're having issues trying to get it to pop out like I am, twist the rubber band a little bit, because this is a very, very tender type of thing to do. Now, what you can do is you can take a flathead screwdriver, you go in between here, you see the little bitty silver part right here. You're just going to push on that little silver piece, because that's the piece that you're trying to get out. Because the rest of it will follow when it does. As you can see, it just popped it completely out. And then just pull it straight out. And there you go. And then I'll take this off, and you can tell this thing is very, I mean, it's got a really good crease going on here. It's literally, like I said, this is not in extremely horrible shape, but you can tell it literally is the same O-ring. It's might be a little more stretch, but it's a little thin here on the top and the bottom. But if you actually look at the thickness between that and this, it's about the same. You got to think this O-ring has been in this toy since '93. Since 1993. That is a long time for an O-ring to be in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to take this O-ring and I'll put it right back over the loop. And see how it just kind of slid right up in there just like it should. And then we're going to force this piece here right back through this hole here. Now it goes in that direction. So you got to remember, this is the front of the crotch, this is the back. Now remember that when you do this, because then you're like, oh wait, I put it on backward. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to take them back apart again after you get this in there. But then try to feed this rubber band through that hole. And as you can see, it's going through just fine. I do suggest you have fingernails when you do this. And then you're going to kind of have to twist it a little bit because you have to get that metal piece through there as well. See, it popped out on me, so you got to be kind of careful when you're doing this. It's a very, very patience-tested thing, so you got to think, if I'm going to do this, you better sit aside a little while to repair this toy. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck doing this for a bit and wonder why you've gone through 4 O-rings because you kept snapping them. Now, if you notice, so the hook is actually in a angle. It's supposed to be in an angle because it helps hold that O-ring in there. Just gonna kind of pull through. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying to push the this piece here up. Now you do have a bit of a rubber bushing here that came out with it. You're just going to have to push that rubber bushing back down, because that is going to come out as well, because it kind of just holds the whole thing together if you notice. So you just basically have to reposition this rubber bushing back over the hook. And I'm doing this just with my fingers. I'm just pushing down on the bushing itself to get it around that plastic, or not that plastic, but that little metal piece down there. It'll take a couple minutes here, but we'll get it. Let's see how it's kind of catching right here, where it's kind of Looks like it's a little knackered. It's not actually knackered, you just gotta, I pushed it down there with my finger. And there you go. You gotta think, whenever you put this in there, you notice his legs aren't falling or anything as I'm putting tension on that rubber band. So, we're gonna basically reverse what we just did. So, you're going to want to remember how he transforms, because that's the biggest thing. You have to remember, okay, when I do this, I flip his feet. Okay, they're going to have to go this way because his feet fall up this direction toward the back. So you're going to take this O-ring here and flip it and push it around that part. And this part here could be a bit tricky considering this is a newer O-ring, so it's got a little more, it's a little thicker than the old one, which is good because it's what you want. And I'm just pushing it in there with my fingernails. If you notice, I'm just taking my fingernails and shoving them in there. I know if you guys out there that don't have any fingernails that are really, you know, big enough, you can take, I really suggest like something extremely like, not really necessarily a screwdriver, because if you do, you can possibly cut the rubber band, but maybe like a toothpick, or I mean even like, say you got one of these and this is a plastic straw, well you just, well, just cut the ends off of it and use the plastic straw part and just push it in, because that'll help. But if you notice that right there holds together pretty good. Now we're just going to take this right here and just put this part here back together. Now when you do this, don't forget his head, because his head did come off. And his head will come off because that's just what it does. And his head will actually go between this little post right here, just like so. And then we're just going to put him right back together the way he was. Now this right here, you got this whole like little curvy part here. Just keep in mind when you're putting this back together that you got to try to line everything back up. And when you do this, make sure you get everything nice and flush, because they shouldn't have, like, you see how it's flush here and there's a gap there and it's flush there. Make sure when you do this that you have him fully put back together. You want to shake him around a little bit. Make it hurt. There we go. And now, put his little shoulder screws back in. Takes a couple minutes here just to screw it in. Then you got the waist one here, you want to screw that one in. Now like I said, when you tighten these down, you don't ever want to over tighten anything. But if you notice, his legs aren't as wobbly. I mean, they're going to have some kind of movement because, I mean, you got to think, this is just tension from a rubber band. But he should be able to stand up a lot better. Which mine, I don't think either way would have really done any good, because, I mean, he's still kind of top heavy. These guys really were. I'm actually not afraid to twist this now, considering when I twisted it, that actually gave it more tension. You know, I think not all the laser rods are like this, though. I think that's the reason being because he happens to have the twist to do his thing. You know. Mess with him here a little bit and see if I can get him to pose here a little bit. There we go. There you go. And it stands up pretty good. I mean, its legs are nowhere near as floppy. I mean, before his legs would have kind of fallen. So, and the other thing you need to keep in mind is whenever you're taking these guys apart, the ball joint is not really a ball joint. It's got a slit here, and it's got a slit there. It has no slit toward the back. So you need to keep that in mind whenever you're actually trying to do anything with these guys. So that way you don't end up over tightening anything. But yeah, he's better. I mean, like I said, it's never perfect. The big thing is this is a very old O-ring, and it had a lot of cracking in it. And my thing is, as many times they transform these guys, they tend to, like, you can see his legs are turning the correct direction. That's so that way you can actually transform him. So that way you don't have to worry about that O-ring snapping in half. Because if you got to think, if a child had this toy whenever they were, you know, really young, and they didn't really take very good care of it, and they kept twisting this could actually be almost to the verge it's going to snap in half. And I know this guy's the one that's the most crazy out of them, because you actually have to spin his waist. The other ones you don't have to do that with, and that's what's the biggest thing is here. Anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been a crazy little kind of insight on how to fix a laser rod. Now, I know this one wasn't perfect, but you know, this kind of gives you guys a bit of an idea. I'm actually not afraid to sit him on a shelf now, because there's times I was kind of afraid to transform him, considering the O-ring was possibly going to go bad in him. And I know that he tends to keep twisting in one direction. Well, over time, the memory of the rubber band, it will form that direction. I mean, you got to think. It is a rubber band, so that's what's crazy about these guys. They actually have some silliness, and it's funny how he's still standing and holding that. Anyway, this has been Plasticon. This has been a quick little repair video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I will have more for the other two as well, and I will catch you guys later. And that's it for now. Bye.